Echoes from the past. Lily has always been curious about her family history. So when she found an old journal in the attic, she knew she'd found treasure. The journal was filled with beautifully handwritten love letters that were exchanged between her grandparents, Alice and Edward. When I started reading, I was instantly transported back in time. The letters were written during World War II when war separated her great-grandparents. Alice was a nurse, stationed in France, while Edward was a soldier fighting on the front lines in Germany. In the letters, Alice expressed her love and longing for Edward. She spoke of the quiet moments they shared together before the war and went into detail about how much she missed him. Edward, in turn, wrote of how he wished he could be with her, but the war kept them apart. Lily couldn't believe her grandparents had such a passionate romance. She was fascinated by the way they wrote about each other and their deep connection, even though they were miles apart. She read the letters, word for word, losing herself in the rhythm of their love. As I dug deeper into the magazine, I realized there was a lot more to her family's story. She couldn't wait to uncover more secrets and hidden gems from her family's past. For the time being, though, she was content to sit in the attic, lost in the rhythm of the letters. Lily was fascinated by the love story of her grandparents, Elsie and Edward, which she discovered in the old magazine. She spent hours carefully reading the written letters, imagining herself in time with them. I felt such an overwhelming sense of pride and belonging, knowing that she was part of such an amazing family history. While reading it, she noticed that some of the letters were smudged and torn, which made her wonder about their journey to get here. She decides to ask her grandmother, Elsie's daughter, if she knows more about the letters and where they come from. Her grandmother tells her that Elsie brought the letters back with her from France after the war, and that they have been passed down from generation to generation ever since. Lily was amazed that the letters had gone on all these years and were still being read. She could not imagine the fear and uncertainty her ancestors must have faced during that period of history. Their love was the anchor, giving them the strength to carry on through the darkest of times. Lily realized how much she had learned about herself and her family's history just from reading these letters. She felt inspired to continue digging into her family's past. Over the next few days, Lily spent all her free time in the attic, reading and taking notes on various aspects of her family's life. She discovers letters from her grandfather to her grandmother, documenting their long-distance relationship while he was away on business trips. There were also journals of her aunts, chronicling their travels and adventures. As she read it all, Lily's understanding of her family's history grew deeper. She saw how much love and passion were a part of her family's story, even during the toughest times. She felt grateful for her heritage and couldn't wait to share her findings with the rest of her family. As Lily continued to explore her family's history, she discovered an old photo album tucked away at the back of a dusty shelf. She carefully opened it to find a collection of black and white photographs of her ancestors from generations past. There were pictures of her great-great-grandparents, who had emigrated to America from Europe, and pictures of her great-parents as children, dressed on their Sunday best. Lily marveled at the sight of her great-aunts and uncles, who looked so stylish and confident in their old photographs. As she flipped through the pages, she realized that the pictures told a story of their own. Each image had a tale to tell, whether it was a wedding or a family vacation. Lily was fascinated by one photo in particular, showing a group of her relatives clustered around a Model T car. The photo captured her great-grandfather Edward as a young man, tall and handsome, standing beside the car in his soldier's uniform. There was a spark in his eyes that Lily had never seen before, and she wondered what he might have been thinking at that moment. She looked more closely at the faces of those in the photo, trying to connect them to the stories she had uncovered in the letters and journals. She could almost hear their voices, telling their stories as if they were still alive. Lily realizes that her family's history was rich and complicated, full of joys and sorrows, triumphs and tragedies, but it was a story worth telling. She wanted to honor her family's legacy, to ensure that their story would be remembered and passed down to future generations. She decided to write a book about her family's history, with the letters, journals, and photographs as primary sources. She knew it would take time and effort, but she felt it was important to preserve her family's history for generations to come. Lily closed the photo album and looked around the attic, feeling a sense of awe and wonder. She knew that there was still so much to uncover, so many stories to tell. But for now, she was content to sit and reflect on the rich history of her family and the legacy they had left behind. Lily spent the next few months researching and writing her family history book. She felt a deep sense of responsibility to her ancestors who had lived through so much hardship and triumph. She wanted to create a tangible representation of their legacy, something that her family could hold on to and pass down to future generations. She interviewed family members and pored over old documents, piecing together an intricate tapestry of her family's past. As she wrote, she found herself becoming more and more connected to her ancestors. Their stories became her own, and she felt as though she were living alongside them. The more she wrote, the more she began to understand how her family history had shaped her own life. She saw how her great-grandparents' courage and steadfastness had influenced the way she approached life's challenges. She also saw how her grandparents' devotion to one another had influenced her own thoughts about love and relationships. Writing the book became a journey of self-discovery for Lily. She had always felt a sense of pride in her family, but now she saw them in a completely new light. She saw them as real people, with flaws and imperfections, who had faced incredible adversity and managed to overcome it, one day at a time. When the book was finally finished, Lily was proud of what she had created. She knew that there were still more stories to uncover, but she felt that she had done justice to her family's legacy. She presented the book to her family at a reunion that summer, and it was met with tears and applause. For Lily, the book represented a connection to a past that had seemed long gone. It was a reminder that her family's story was still being written, and that she was a part of it. With her family history book complete, Lily found herself itching to learn more about the world beyond her own family. She wanted to understand how her family's experiences fit into the larger context of history, and how they might be connected to other stories from around the world. She began to read voraciously, immersing herself in the literature of history and culture. She read books about the colonization of the Americas, the slave trade, and the civil rights movement. She watched documentaries about the fall of the Berlin Wall, the civil war in Syria, and the rise of global terrorism. As she absorbed all this new information, she began to see patterns and connections that she had never noticed before. She saw how the experience of her own family fit into the larger context of human history. She saw how the struggles and injustices of the past continued to shape the world in which she lived. But she also saw something else. She saw that despite all the challenges that humanity had faced, there was still hope. She saw how people had stood up against oppression, fought for freedom and justice, and made the world a better place. She saw that her own family had played a small part in this larger story, and that the legacy of hope and resilience that they had left behind was something to be celebrated and cherished. Lily realized that there were still so many stories to uncover, so many people to learn from, and so much work to be done. But she felt a new sense of purpose and determination. She knew that by learning from the past, she could help shape a better future. As Lily closed her latest book and put it back on the shelf, she smiled. She knew that her journey of discovery was far from over, but she felt ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. She felt that she was a part of something larger than herself, a part of a story that would continue on long after she was gone.